I'm the Jefferson County Emergency Management Director. We ask you to come to this press conference. We're going to talk about the train derailment that occurred Sunday night. Approximately 8:22 p.m. on Sunday night, which was January the 6th, Jefferson County 911 received a phone call that there had been a train derailment north of the city of Bartow in Jefferson County. Jefferson County Sheriff's Office, the Bartow Fire Department, Gold Cross EMS, as well as the Police Department from Bartow and other agencies responded. They did find a train derailed in the Williamson Swamp Creek area of Jefferson County. During the initial information after they met with the train crews advised that they had been exposed to some type of chemical. Initially, it was thought that it could have been a chlorine release, which was later found that not chlorine. Chlorine has never been released on this train accident. However, the train members were taken to Jefferson County Hospital where they were decontaminated for the chemical they were exposed to and transported, I think, to Augusta Doctors Hospital. Based upon the information that we had received that it was possible a chlorine release, we initiated a 7-mile radius evacuation, which included the cities of Bartow and the cities of Wadley. Later information showed that it was not the chlorine release. The hazmat crew was able to check it. They found out that the chlorine tanks were intact. They had not been breached, and we were able to decrease the radius of the evacuation to 3 miles. Further assessment of the tanks helped us understand that the danger had lessened, and at 7 o'clock on Monday morning, all evacuation orders had been rescinded. During that process, several responders, though, began to feel ill. They were lightheaded, irritated throat, and experienced some respiratory problems. They were transported to Jefferson County Hospital for decontamination as well as treatment. After a complete assessment by the hazmat crews on scene, like I said, we were able to do away with the evacuation orders and the further investigation of the accident. I've asked Lou Zimrad with the hospital. He's going to speak to you about the hospital's response for the contaminated victims coming in, and then we'll talk with Norfolk Southern as well as EPA.
Good afternoon. I'm Lou Zimrad. I'm the CEO of Jefferson Hospital. On Sunday night at approximately 8:35, the hospital received word that there had been a train derailment near the town of Bartow, and that there was possibly a chemical spill. Shortly thereafter, we initiated Code Green, which is our designation for a disaster, and that allows us to bring in additional resources. Shortly thereafter, we started to receive patients. To date, that night, 3 individuals were decontaminated, triaged, and it was determined that they needed a higher level of care, and they were taken to Doctors Hospital in Augusta. To date, we've treated and decontaminated 26 patients. 3, I previously mentioned, 3 were transported that night or early Monday morning to Doctors Hospital, to the burn center. And then yesterday we had a patient who is in the hospital for observation. Condition worsened, and that individual was transported to the burn center at Doctors Hospital. And then as I left the hospital today, we had 1 additional individual who came in yesterday. He was a first responder or volunteer fireman that responded, and he was starting to have some respiratory issues. We put him in the hospital overnight, and he was being transported to Doctors Hospital to the burn center also. So 26 patients decontaminated and triaged and treated. 5 of those wound up at Doctors Hospital. Monday morning at a little after 3 o'clock, we ceased the Code Green. We had received word that it wasn't a chlorine leak and that the containment area had shrunk. So we came off Code Green. We saw 4 patients yesterday afternoon and 3 last night, and since then we've not seen any more. Any questions?
How many deputies and how many first responders? How many deputies so far? We have 3 deputies. And
yes, one of the ones that was transported yesterday was a deputy, and then the one today was a first responder, a volunteer fireman.
Do you have any update on their conditions? Do you know if they're doing well, or?
If one is being transported to Doctors Hospital, his condition has worsened, but as far as those that are already at Doctors, you'll have to contact their media department. And perhaps Norfolk Southern has an update on that as well, as 2 of those were Norfolk Southern employees.
Can you speak to what types of injuries you were seeing?
Respiratory difficulty, nobody coded, so it wasn't that severe. But again, we didn't know at the time, other than we thought, the initial report was that it was chlorine. If you know chlorine, it's very bad. They used chlorine gas in World War I. And so we in cooperation with Doctors Hospital, the Burn Center, lots of communication, and everybody felt it best. Don't delay. Let's not take any chances. Ship them over here.
Thanks for service.
Thank you and good evening. I'm Greg Comstock. I'm the general manager for Norfolk Southern that runs the southern region, both the Alabama and the Georgia divisions. As everyone has mentioned, we had our train derailment Sunday evening around 8:22 p.m. We immediately mobilized our forces, both emergency management and with help of Jim here in the county, but also folks from CTEC that does our air monitoring, worked with Rick here from the EPA, who I'll introduce in a minute, and we've been doing that continually from that incident time, and we still continue to do that as we speak. We have all the forces we need for the wrecking services to remove the derailed cars from the site, put them in a safe zone, protect them, and we'll work on remediating those cars here as time goes forward. I'm sure there'll be some questions about that. The great thing is we did not have what was thought to be the worst case scenario, a chlorine leak. We did have 2 tank cars that did breach. They were together side by side, and we were able to work together here on keeping that all contained right in a local area and protect our citizens and what have you here locally. Our number 1 goal is exactly that when we have an incident like this, is we want to protect our public, protect all the citizens that are around that area, and of course the people that are working at the site, and of course our customers' product if we can. So it's been a strong effort by all parties involved. We still have a lot of work to do. We're down to about 5 rail cars left to remove from the wreck site itself. And when I say that, I'm talking about taking them from where they're at to a proper staging area where we can do more with them. And that'll take place sometime yet, hopefully this evening. And everything's going very well. It's been very safe on the property, making this cleanup happen. And we plan on doing exactly that continuing. So that's the end of my report for now. I'm going to introduce Rick Jardine from the EPA.
Thank you. My name is Rick Jardine. I'm with the Environmental Protection Agency. Our role here is in Unified Command is to help set incident objectives that will help be protective for human health and the environment. Our field role is in the air monitoring and surveying aspect. We have a perimeter set up that's about a 9 square mile perimeter to check the air conditions related to any potential hazmat chemicals that could be released and affecting the community. Fortunately, over the last 24 hours, we've had none in that perimeter zone. We also run special missions at the request of the county folks. We'll answer questions later. I'd like to introduce Clete Barton from the Georgia EPD.
I'm Clete Barton. I'm an on-scene coordinator with Georgia Environmental Protection Division. I joined Unified Command, and I'm working along with Rick, EPA. Our particular focus is on long-term contamination with the soils and the water, and kind of overseeing the cleanup. So that is it, Mr. Fletcher.
Good evening. My name's John Fletcher. I'm the regional manager of casualty claims with Norfolk Southern. I cover the southern region. We received a phone call on Sunday evening to respond to a derailment down here, so I reacted with a team of 12 members, and we came to this center, and I met with Jim, and it's been a great working relationship since. Yesterday we set up the center at 3 p.m. It stayed open till 10, and maybe a little later to process as many people as we could with assistance that were evacuated from the 7 mile and 3 mile range. We're open today from 9 to 6, and we'll be open the rest of the week. Tomorrow's hours are 10 to 8 p.m. and then 9 to 6 on Thursday and Friday as well. And that's all I have. If you have any questions, I'll be around later. Thank you.
I'm Mitch McGraw, Commission Chairman for Jefferson County, and I want to commend Norfolk Southern on their quick response and them coming to see about the problem they had. They've been very diligent to come to Jefferson County and take care of the citizens and the problem that we had. I guess y'all got planes flying. Is that something monitoring the air? How are y'all monitoring the air? Help me out with that.
Sure. Our air monitoring and the professionals from the railroad, we have several. We have some fixed station monitoring, upwind and downwind of the exclusion zone, the area where all the actual work's being done. We also have roving monitors. It's in vehicles. They're driving around with the monitors, and we have several of those going around this perimeter loop. So it's all ground based, okay. Which is where the breathing zone is. That's what we find important for the community.
Okay. How far out? How far out are you monitoring?
It's a little bit bigger than a mile of a loop. We're like coming up the county line and then down on the highway and coming around. It's a 9 square mile area all around. It's pretty much evenly distributed around. I'll put the map up in a little bit. I had it up here in the computer, went ahead and went to sleep on it, but you can see exactly, we have like a snail trail that's shown on the computer, and it keeps coming in. We're getting information like over the internet. We post it, it comes down, and we keep a live monitoring of this 24 hours a day.
Just for the average citizen, as the crow flies from the wreck, how far out?
About a mile and a half, 2 miles.
A mile and a half.
Of a radius, if you would.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And you've had no hits?
In the last 24 hours, no. Early on Sunday night, it was a cloud of water vapor, fog, but then it had some of the hydrochloric and other components in it. So we did early on have some hits that were getting out to the highway.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And also, I'd like to commend also the city of Bartow, which the fire department, the mayor, everybody in Bartow went to work quick on this thing. They went door to door, knocking on people's doors and getting them out of Bartow as evacuation started. The mayor and the fire chief, Mayor Morris, and police chief, fire chief Evans, Chip Evans, and they got Bartow evacuated quick. And for a town that's never had nothing like that, for a community that's never had nothing like that says a lot for them. And also, Washington County came and assisted, Emmanuel County came and assisted. Richmond County sent, I think, six deputy Richmond County Sheriff Departments down here to help, because all our deputies were out door to door trying to get people and closing roads and all. So all the counties came together and worked real good as a community to help one another. We evacuated city of Bartow. We're evacuating Wadley, and I think before we got through in Wadley, the call came in to hold off on that, because it come back to, they stepped back to 3 miles. But it really, the mayor of Bartow and the police chief, Mayor Wadley and the police chief in Wadley took care of that very well too. And for, like I say, a community that's never had nothing like this before, we've learned a lot from it, and we hope it never happens again. But seems like every time we turn around, something different is happening in our county that we have to learn from. But we commend everybody that worked good together, and commend Mr. Anderson for doing a good job. And we thank everybody for stepping up to plate, the hospital, which has been so good and diligent taking care of people. And on behalf of myself and the commissioner, we're proud of the response that everybody has had. The sheriff's department, state patrol came and helped us, and it's been, everybody stepped up to the plate and had worked real good together, and we've had a long couple of days. Thank y'all.
Okay, I guess in closing, the point I want to make is, and you've seen it from the remarks, the local, the state, the federal partners have worked diligently together. While we're trying to get the situation mitigated, we're trying to get the wreckage out, we want to do it safely, and the bottom goal is to do it safely for the workers that are out on the scene, but especially the citizens and the visitors of Jefferson County. All these gentlemen up here have worked diligently. If I've asked questions, if I've asked them to perform a task that may or may not have been on their radar at the moment, they have done so without hesitation, and I appreciate the efforts they've made on our behalf. If you have any other questions now, we'll be happy to ask you a few questions, or then we can do it at a later time, either one.
Do we know the cause yet of how this happened?
We are still under investigation of that. We got many items we need to look at. All the locomotives have their own black box. They have been removed. They're being analyzed as we speak. We also look over the track structure to make sure everything is good there, and also all the mechanical pieces of the equipment itself. So it takes a while, but that investigation is ongoing.
And who is conducting that investigation? Only your company, or is it a federal agency as well, or who's conducting this?
Our company is looking at that. However, we do have oversight. The FRA has been on scene. They've been reviewing some of the data we provided them, as well as the EPA on their monitoring, what have you. But working very closely together, as we always have. But yeah, we're still under investigation. It may take weeks to really find out what took place here.
You said there were 5 rail cars left to be cleaned up, so the cleanup should be done by tonight, tomorrow?
It's very slow and tedious, rightly so, because of the commodities we're dealing with. That's my hope, is that it'll be late this evening. We'll have them in a safe place, and we're doing that very secure basis and keeping our employees safe and the public safe. And then, of course, we have to do track restoration and things of that nature. But we expect to have the equipment in a safe place, hopefully by midnight tonight.
And what message are you trying to send to the people that are waiting out there and waiting tomorrow and the next couple of days that are here trying to get reimbursed for their money they spent because of the evacuation, stuff like that?
We have opened the facility till Friday, and if need be, we'll stay and be open next week as well to make sure we get everybody within the evacuation zone process. So I want people to understand that, there's no need to rush in. It's not closing tomorrow. We're going to be open, and we'll stay open as long as need be.
And how do you determine the amount of money that is going to each person?
That varies by person and circumstances.
So I was hearing just from residents out there that 200 was going to the people that was in Bartow, and then 100 was going to those in Wiley. Is that true or not?
And that is partially true. I don't want to say anything that's incorrect, but it's within proximity of the evacuation zone. Some were evacuated longer than others. That affects payment.
Okay.
But it also, if somebody has hotel expenses or
So
other expenses on top of that, it could vary as well.
Okay. So it's not based off of location, it's how long you were evacuated.
Proximity to the derailment, so the 3-mile evacuation zone versus 7 mile.
And do we know how much chemical leak there was?
That's still being looked at now. That's part of the remediation process. That'd be the sampling that Clete talked about that we're going to do on the air or ground samples and water samples. We will measure what's left in these tank cars. We've only had 2 that actually had a problem, so that's very fortunate. And again, it was all isolated, right together, so that was a good thing that we could take care of very quickly, I believe. But we'll do that officially.
Is there any concern for long-term health problems for the people living, or want to kind of put that to rest, or kind of don't know at this point?
Well, it's, if I could, Rick.
Sure.
It's, the commodities that were involved are not long-term risk type of conditions. Obviously, everyone's different. But, it happened in a very confined location, and it stayed confined from that point on. So, long-term effects, I really don't see that. And short-term effects, I really don't see that either. I mean, after that first hours were over, we knew exactly what we had and how we had to deal with it, and we've been doing that ever since. As Rick said, there's not been any hits that have concerned anybody since then. So we're well past any issues, I feel.
So is there, and right now, does the company or the EMA have any concerns about the whole area or the safety of the residents?
Or Jim?
From the county side, I would say no. They're doing 24-hour, air monitoring, day and night. So they're doing due diligence. They're working hard. I would say that they've done an excellent job of making sure that they're aware of what's going on in our environment.
You said y'all were just starting to look at the soil and water to check if it did get into the water source and the soil. What what does that look like for the people living here? Are they going to be able to drink the water?
So those are good questions. So I'd like to follow up on the other ones. First of all, to the long-term effects of the chemicals. These chemicals, from a health standpoint, are what we call acute action chemicals. Okay, they're not long-term. They're not cancer-causing chemicals. Okay, so these are things that the folks are getting the respiratory distress that's happened right away. You know, if you were exposed and it was beyond your tolerance for your body, you're exposed right away. And the hospital and the doctors are doing those evaluations. The air won't come up next week and get you, okay, so to speak. As far as the soils go, that's a big concern of us, of the state, you know, it's an environment. There are no wells in close proximity, so from a geologic standpoint, there won't be any migration off. However, the railroad has agreed, and we're going to review their plan. They're putting together a sampling plan for the soil, just to see, have all these compounds reacted and they're inert, or are they still manifested in the soil near the swampy headwaters that goes to the river, which is, you know, miles away. But so we're going to check those environmental things, and again, the state's taking the regulatory lead on that. Thank you.
I wanted to back up about there's a creek running through that area, near that area, and I was wondering if that water would affect that stream of water running through there.
Are you talking about the swamp, the Williamson
Right.
Creek? No, actually it hasn't yet, but we are doing sampling even right now for that. We're out there, our consultants are out there putting samples together. That we haven't even got a full plan together. We're actually taking samples from that creek right at the site and, you know, a quarter mile down, so that we can get some instant information now, and then we'll evaluate it when it comes in. But we haven't seen any releases going to that creek, okay? It's a very, very muddy, swampy area where we're at, and there's been no rain, so we've had nothing flushing things away. Things have pretty much hit and stayed right there, and then all the soil they've had to import to make it where you can even work and get a good roadbed in, all that soil's kind of dried up. What little bit of swampy water was there, so there's less flow. There is flow subsurface. You can see flow way down deep, which is why we take some samples. But there's nothing from the surface going to the waters at this point. We're gonna keep diligent on it. We're gonna get a sampling plan here that they're developing. Okay, thank you.
And it was just hydrogen peroxide that leaked, that we know of.
That was one of the compounds, and hydrochloric acid was another.
How many cars total? I know 2 were breached and there are 5 left, but how many cars total?
There was a total of 39 rail cars derailed and 1 locomotive out of the 3-unit consist.
But let me ask you a question. Was some of them hauling chemicals that were more dangerous than what got exposed? I guess I'm just asking.
We had 13 of the rail cars that had chlorine, which was the ones we were concerned about the most.
I know.
And the one we've been monitoring them all, but we've been staying particularly close to, while we're cleaning this up, those cars, make sure they stay exactly as they are today, very safe.
And going back to the evacuation process, for those residents who were, let's say, bedridden or didn't have the means of transportation, that sort of thing, what was done for those residents?
We've put out a 1-800 number, and if somebody is bedridden and can't make it to the center, they can call. We've had some already, and we've went to people's residence, so on a case-by-case basis, they can call in, and if need be, we will go to their house.
And have you guys had any problems with residents coming in, getting their money, and you giving them the money or anything?
No, we have not had any problem. I wish that we could process everybody in one day, but that's not possible. So we are processing as fast as we can, and that's why we'll be here as long as need be.
Well, what about the people when you were actually evacuating? Those that weren't able to leave their homes?
Okay, we did have several that were either bedridden or didn't have transportation. They go across EMS on our bedridden patients, transported some of them to the hospital. They transported to the shelter. Jefferson County Transit provided their drivers and buses to get the residents out, and they helped us transport them back once the evacuation was over. So we have a plan in place for this or any other type of incident, which is called an emergency support function. The transit, our school bus drivers, our school buses, all are part of. And I was in contact that night with Board of Education. Their transportation director was here with us. And if we needed more buses, we had that available. Everyone worked together, and we enacted our plan and opened up the operations center here. We'll take one final question, and then we'll do everyone sidebars. Yes, ma'am.
Of the 13 chlorine tankers left, are all those already cleared out? How were those removed?
We have 5 of those left yet to remove. And again, we plan on having that done before midnight tonight.
How are those removed? Is it a certain process?
It is a certain process. It's working with cranes and what have you to safely pick them up and walk them out and put them on safe soil and make sure they're stable. We have environmental teams that are looking at the cars as we pick them up and ensuring that they are not compromised in any way. And so far, it's been very good news. So we expect it to continue.
And they're not out of the county. Wait,
Was that the
proximity.
question?
Yeah.
They're still at the wreck site. They're off the, I guess you call it the swampy soil. We've made a more stable platform for the cars to be laid to rest on. They'll be there for a while we continue to set up a plan to transload those cars, and we're working on that plan as we speak. That'll be something we'll be doing over the next several weeks to a month to make that happen.
And that's perfectly normal.
Yeah.
All right, final thing. I think most of you have my phone number. I've talked to, I believe, all of you. But if you don't, if you'll see me after this, I'll make sure you had it. As we progress through the next few days, maybe into a couple of weeks, feel free to call me. If I don't have an answer for you, I'll get with the conglomerate here and we'll get you your answer. Thank you for coming.